Hello, everybody. Mike and Dustin with you on the EIC Podcast. We're here this week to jump into a subject that we love and I think is becoming more and more relevant as we do lead generation and run ads. And that's creative optimization, dynamic creative optimization, and how we approach it. There's a lot out there, and we want to dive into our particular methodology of doing this, which is letting the data lead and letting a deep dive process into your creative to know what's working, lead the process, and then using tools, a lot of tools, great tools that are out there to feed the system with your updated creative. Dustin and I were talking about this before the podcast, and the days of creating $20,000 videos and then letting those run for 6 months are over. It's great to have that. You can have that, but it's going to stagnate very quickly. So we want to talk about creative optimization, dynamic creative optimization. But we first want to talk about our process of leading that, which is data leading. And yes, it's a little bit of a chicken and an egg scenario. Always what creative to use and test, and then how do you get the data so then you can feed new creative. However, we're assuming, and Dustin, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but we're assuming in this scenario you have some creative to roll out with, and we have a lot of guidelines around that, which you can dig back into some past episodes to look at. But we're assuming that the initial creative is there, you're putting this foot forward, and then what? So with that, I'll kick it to you, Dustin, to talk about our creative deep dive process, the tools we use for that, the data analysis for that, and how we're working on that with our clients. So let's start there.
So once a month, what we'll do is take a deep dive into the creative, and we're obsessed with speaking to prospects and people who we get in front of through a journey, and that's gonna be through a funnel. So we have top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, and bottom. And so really what we're looking to do is at each stage, there are different KPIs that we're looking at to accomplish. So we'll go in and look at how's video doing compared to static, what placements are doing better. We'll really analyze what photos, what creative is doing better. We'll also analyze all the different headlines, the copy. So it is everything that's in market. What are we saying to who we're saying it to, and analyze what's really sticking out, what's performing and not performing. This helps us optimize and do better. But from this, we can then do a deep dive and really uncover the gaps of what we're missing, and then we can provide more feedback on what to produce more of and what to do less of. So as we do this on the monthly, we also have a creative request where we're going to be asking for some sort of creative or content. And so it's a nice little system where we're looking at the data, really identifying what's working and teeing it up very nicely on just produce more of this, either more videos, call out the product or service or the pain point earlier, really directional feedback so that you can produce more of what fits in the funnel. And overall, as we do this, we see that performance tends to improve period over period.
And to give a little sneak peek into that, our deep dives are more hand-to-hand combat, but in our dashboard that we have just rolled out, which is fresh on the scene, we have a breakdown of creatives and how these creatives are performing on a cost basis, a cost per lead basis, whether it's like Dustin was saying, video, images. We are productizing this process, if you will, so that our customers get this signal in real time and then can optimize the creative based on these signals and this data. So I wanted to point that out as an example of what it looks like and some of the feedback and some of the reporting that comes back that's feeding these signals for creative. So let's talk a little bit about, okay, we're getting these signals back, Dustin. Let's say the signal says, hey, at the middle of the funnel, your testimonials are doing great or your reviews are really performing best. Those signals come back. What do people do from there, or what tools are out there from there to then give us some more iterations of this that could perform better?
Something that we've been rolling out quite a bit and leveraging are Google reviews. Getting reviews that are out there, and all you're doing is screenshotting or getting some of those reviews and making that the focal point along with what problem you solve. But this is a good example of you can go in and get testimonials, reviews that fuel the middle of the funnel. and it's a simple copy paste. And we use tools like Nano Banana, File.ai, and what you could do is it has Nano Banana and other models that are out there. I think 30 different models, image creation, video creation. But once we get one framework, we'll throw it in there and iterate on different reviews. We'll copy and paste the testimonial, and this allows us to really generate several different creative and on a weekly basis. And those that have constant reviews coming in, it definitely makes it easier.
How do you recommend folks set this up from a campaign perspective? And let's talk about Meta, for example. Middle of the funnel, this looks like what's driving conversion and driving the cheapest conversions. Okay, I'm going to feed middle of funnel with reviews because reviews are doing well or testimonials are doing well. How do you recommend folks set this up to test this structure? Is there anything unique about that, or is it like a classic Meta ad set setup? Put your creative into a new ad set, let it run and see which performs best. I just want to clarify that part because there's a little closing of the loop on that piece as well.
It is a bit of an audience setup, and I think definition around what is middle of the funnel, and taking a step back, how we look at it is we'll really try to drive engagement and just eyeballs, video do well at the top of the video. So those who watch 50% of a video, but they become aware of the brand and the problem that you solve. And so a lot of the times it's video views. It could be going to a home page where it articulates the brand and the problem you solve, but it's very early touch points there. Then we get to the middle of the funnel, and what we do is try and drive traffic more to the service pages where there's a bit more selling, a bit more specifically around what are the deliverables, what are you actually delivering. And so from our setup, what we'll do is set up ad sets, ad groups. We'll do it on Google as well, but really ad sets and ad groups that retarget video viewers of 75% or more, those who engage on social content, and those that have been to the website or homepage and they've engaged but haven't been to a product or service page. So we're very obsessed with audience segmentation and who we're talking to and what point in the funnel they're at and what we want them to do. That's who we want to talk to, build that trust, and speak to that audience with these reviews. And our goal is to get them to service pages and either reach out or really engage that T at the bottom of the funnel and going in for that ask.
So then what I'm asking is, how do we inject at this point so that we get the proper signals to then distinguish and differentiate between which creatives are doing well and which aren't? So I am assuming that's on an ad set level, audience out of the way, all of the things that you've talked about out of the way, basically in a vacuum. If we have an ad set of new creative, do we just put all of those new creatives that we've created at this point into an ad set, see which performs best? How is that working?
Ad set, ad group, because we define those by audience, they would go in there, and then we have typically a testing ad set and ad group and a best performing. So there'll be something that's running, we just continue to throw those in there. We'll pause what's not running and then extract better performing if it makes sense. But there should just be a testing ad group, ad set, and then anytime you get new creative, you just throw it in there. And you know what metrics you're looking at, so you just pause what's not working, and then the next round you'll know where to look, and if that's now the new test or new concept, if it's performing better, you'll know where to look and what the benchmarks are.
And our platform and our dashboard is now surfacing that information, folks, so that you don't necessarily have to be a Facebook wizard or a Google wizard to get these signals and know what's performing best. So I wanted to point that out, that we are also simplifying that process so that the signal comes back, is clear, and then you can iterate again on that, because we're talking about dynamic optimization here. We're talking every couple weeks. So you want to make that process simple and as frictionless as possible so that you can do this more and more and more and more, because the platforms now want more creative and they're going to optimize towards that. So you want to be able to do this relatively quickly. Anything else on dynamic creative optimization that you want to talk about?
I think just reemphasizing what you mentioned, and these platforms more and more just want more creative. And so figuring out how to deliver, more than just, one graphic or one or two videos a month is going to be a must if you're going to want to scale and find efficiency as you scale. So The more process we have, the less time it takes. So you have more time to actually deliver more creative. And if you dive into these AI tools, might not be perfect, but being able to deliver quantity at a good look, it's going to drive better success. So figure out what AI tools can you fold into your workflow will allow you to produce at scale, maintain brand visibility, and drive performance.
The most in-depth conversations we have with clients at the beginning of processes is typically about creative and what creative to create, how to create creative, how often do I optimize creative, how often do we need when we're servicing you creative to optimize. So if this is an interesting subject to you and you need some help and want to have a discussion around this, please click book a discovery call on our site, and that will get you time with me. This is a piece that I've looked at thousands of ads and thousands of campaigns. So we definitely have expertise here on how to put your foot forward if you're wondering about that. So please, again, if it makes sense for you and this is something that's been a thorn in your brain, we'd love to pluck it out and help you out on a discovery call. We would love to get time with you. So appreciate you, Dustin. Thanks for your insight into this world. And you out there, if you have some questions on this, please book a discovery call with us and we'll get some time together. So thanks for listening. And until next time, we'll catch you on the EIC podcast. All right, take care.